Greetings, viewer. Thought I'd share with you a update. 15mm Napoleonic count for reasons that completely baffle me, because I think it was one of the worst videos I think I've ever done. Nonetheless, has proved somewhat popular. So in the next month or two, apparently the Australian government is introducing regulation of social media, which will include YouTube. Not sure myself at the moment how that's all going to work, but there are indications that you will have to provide verification that you're, I'm not sure whether it's 16 or over 16, but that you will need to provide evidence, proof that you are, I guess in effect, over 16. I have no intention whatsoever of releasing private information such as license details, passport, etc. To somebody like YouTube. So I thought, best to get in and pop in a video or two, just in case that may happen. And given the popularity of the 15mm count, I thought, and supposedly I have finished the 15mm collection, at least for the time being, I thought we could have a look. Now in front of you is the British Peninsular Stroke 100-day army. There will be 5 armies in this presentation: British, French, Russian, Austrian and Prussian. Each of them will compose of what I call 3 core forces. Now, a core force for me is 4 infantry units, a cavalry unit, some skirmishers and some artillery. 2 of that core group will belong to, I guess, the host nation, in this case Britain. The 3rd force, core force, will be made up of allies, just to give a bit of colour to the various armies. Now, on top of that, there will be reserve formations, guards, heavy cavalry forces, etc. Now, if we start with the sort of basic British core forces, which is these 2 groups here. So you can see the cavalry at the back, 4 lots of infantry, 4 stands of skirmishers, and a couple of artillery there at the front. So, So that's your 2 core groups of the host nation, and then there'll be a 3rd core force. I eventually decided, after travelling through a plethora of Napoleonic rules, if you've seen my earlier videos, you'll know of some of the many varied rules we've been through over the years. Back in the day, back in the 1980s, I don't know about anywhere else, but to us it was the bane that every time you changed a rule set, you had to change your basing. Now, I don't think that's such a problem these days, but back then it used to drive us nuts. I eventually decided that I was going to base these figures as aesthetically pleasing for myself as possible, and it was up to rules to fit in with my basing, not the other way around. And I eventually decided on 8 figures per infantry base, 4 stands to a unit. Likewise, the cavalry up the back there, 3 cavalry figures in this instance, with 4 stands. And then the skirmishers, I went with 4 figures per stand, rather than 2 or 3, just because I like the look. And I was thinking, well, 2 of those blokes would have been reloading while the other 2 would have been firing. And then the artillery. Now the artillery, I went with 2 figures per stand to to make sure to say that they were horse artillery. Demark, I can't think of the word, you know what I mean. 3 figures would represent medium artillery, and 4 artillery figures on a stand with the artillery piece would denote heavy artillery. So now reviewing the remaining armies isn't going to be as long as this particular one, because here I'm actually sort of going through my thinking. Now in my mind's eye, I like what they call big battle rule sets. Napoleon's battles, Field of Glory, Napoleonic. In my mind, 1 stand is a battalion, 2 stands is a regiment, 2 regiments is a brigade, 2 brigades is a division, and then 2 divisions is your, inverted commas, corps, with your attached cavalry, your attached skirmishers, and your corps artillery. Now, when I was coming up with this, I do confess that as well as aesthetically pleasing, I was trying to make them as amenable as possible to various sets of rules. As I say, tactical rules aren't my bag, but of course, obviously, I can use these as based for games such as the currently very popular General D'Armée 2? General D'Armée 2 and La Salle 2nd edition, etc. But my scene is big battle Napoleonics. Anyway, with the British, they're perhaps a tad more complicated than the others in that my British Army is basically meant to be used for either the Peninsula or the 100 Days campaign. Generally with my armies, I don't worry too much about where they sit in the time frame. Those of you who are Napoleonic grognards will know that the uniforms changed significantly, I think we can say, over even the 1805 to 1815 period. Generally, I've gone for figures more towards the later period, say 1810, 1815. But you'll notice when we look at my armies, there are quite a few figures that date from the earlier periods. Anyway, what I was saying about the British being a bit more complicated. Now, here's my little British reserve force over here. We've got some Guard cavalry, heavy cavalry, Scots Greys, some Marines of all things, with some Marine skirmishers, and then these are actually chariot miniatures. They're meant to be my guards. Just quickly, yeah, obviously it's a problem. There wasn't an entire brigade of Scots Greys and other things, such as my British Guards are only carrying 1 flag. Back in the 1970s, early 1980s, research was nowhere near as advanced as it is today. I think I've mentioned that before in previous videos. And also, figure availability, you used what you had. and to try and, say for example in the case of British units, to make sure they all had 2 flags would have meant buying 2 packs command figures. It would have resulted in a lot of excess figures that never got used, etc, etc, etc. So then, and even now, I've pretty much gone with what I've got. So yeah, that's the British, what I call the reserve force. Now you'll see with other armies, there's both a reserve infantry, usually guard of some sort, and there's also a cavalry reserve force, usually heavy cavalry. The British are fairly small, so they've just got this one conglomerate force that I can add and subtract pieces to. Now, at the moment, up the back there, see if it'll zoom in. Okay. What we've got here is 2 units of Hanoverians. So this is set up for the 100 Days campaign. Now, if I want to play down in the peninsula, or a scenario down in the peninsula, come back a bit, what I do is I replace those 2 Hanoverian infantry units with these 2 Portuguese units, and some British light cavalry, just painted up as late war Portuguese cavalry. They go into the reserve force over here. Now, if I'm playing 100 days battles, where are we? Let's see if we can zoom back out again. Okay, if I'm playing 100 days battles, the Allied Corps force is this group here. Dutch, Belgian and Brunswick cavalry, 2 Brunswick units, Nassau unit and Dutch unit, skirmishers and artillery. This is one of the few armies that I've actually got non-host group figures. These are actual Dutch-Belgian gunners. So they will be used as the 3rd Corps force. Now you can see over the back, all of my armies have got spare figures. Those are actual minifig 2nd generation Belgians. And then I've got some more skirmishers at the back. And again though, if I'm in the peninsula, I don't use that force. I use this one. Spanish Dragoons, 4 units of Spanish, some skirmishers and Spanish artillerymen. And I think, again, this is one of the few armies, I don't think they're Spanish guns, but they are actual Spanish Essex, I think, artillerymen. So there you go. Now, I mentioned in my previous video that I would like to have had a small Spanish force as well, just to be able to fight French in smaller games. And so, as indicated in that video, I went ahead, you can see up the back there, 2 units of guerrillas, spare cavalry, Spanish light cavalry, these your Spanish generals sprinkled around through. 2 units of Spanish line infantry, some Spanish heavy cavalry and some Spanish grenadiers. The heavy cavalry, the grenadiers and these small battery 2 medium guns here. If I'm fighting down in the peninsula and I'm using the Spanish as my allied force, I will tend to put that small group there over with the British Reserve that we looked at earlier to beef that up a bit. But yeah, just so I can play a Spanish army, just a small Spanish army against the French as well. So technically, I suppose you could say that's my 6th army, but they originally started out just as that 3rd Allied Corps force for my British. We'll come back a bit higher. As I say, this particular review is a bit long. Sorry, the light's not great. I mean, my camera works dodgy at the best of times, so and the light's not great today. 1 minute it's cloudy, next minute it's not. Anyway, the count. So we're looking at 24 lots of 32 infantry, 28 bases of 4 infantry, 8 units of 12 cavalry, 12 guns and 34 artillerymen. So all up 768 line infantry, 112 irregular or skirmish infantry, 96 cavalry, 12 guns, 34 artillerymen, and sprinkled in amongst there is 14 commanders. I still haven't made up my mind yet about which rules to use. I won't go into those details just yet. That will be the subject of another video as long as the Australian government lets me continue using YouTube. Okay, on to the next topic. Okay, moving on to the Russian force. Now, you can see, again, exactly the same pattern, the 3 core forces. So you've got 1, 2, and then 3, which is the Allied core force. For my Russian Allied core force, I went with Swedish. Sorry about that. Swedish and Russians with overcoats and caps. These chaps here. Somewhat cheekily, I've called them Finnish. I just couldn't face buying and trying to paint another 4 units of Swedes. And yeah, so if you don't like me calling them Finnish, think of them as Siberians or something like that. Yeah, same sort of principle. Let's back out a bit. Okay, so you've got your Russian reserve, 3 units of infantry, 1 unit of cavalry. Now, one thing I am thinking of doing, and I discussed this in other videos. Now, in Blucher, pickup games of Blucher, you often only get 1 stand of guard cavalry, and it doesn't differentiate between guard heavy or guard light. Yeah, not too sure about that. In any event, so yeah, often you'll see with these following armies, you've got like these are early Russian cuirassiers, and then guard, or my attempt at painting Russian guard hussars. Now what I've done, again, as per an earlier video, in this case here, I've painted 6 Russian Guard dragoons. Now, this gives me a little bit of flexibility later on if I want to go whole hog, say playing something like Shako or something like that, or any tactical set of rules. or even just having a Guard Heavy Brigade and Guard Light Brigade, I can put these Guard Dragoons with the Guard Russian cuirassiers. I would have to paint another 6 Russian light cavalry as a guard unit. So yeah, that's a an option for the future. But yeah, so you can see there the 3 Russian Guard Yagers, Pavlovs, and something else. Then your stock standard 2 Russian corps forces with the 4 infantry, the cavalry. The cavalry with these, what I call corps forces, is always light cavalry. What do we got here? Hussars and mounted Yagers up there, I think. And then your Allied corps, which, as I say, is your Swedish cavalry at the back, early Swedish cavalry, and yeah, whatever you want to call the other guys. Same deal, 4 stands of skirmishers, a couple of guns. Now, what the other armies tend to have, which the British don't, is a heavy cavalry force as part of their reserve, consisting, say for example here, we've got 2 units of cuirassiers, 1 of dragoons. Now, dragoons can either be heavy or light, and some horse artillery. 8 commanders, and then over here, just some spare units, Russian line, Russian Yager, and some Cossacks. Now, I mentioned before about not being too fussed about what time period forces come from. Now, most of my Russian troops over here are with the Kiewa, but I do have a couple of Russian units, and I think these were round way. Don't think they exist anymore, but these were 1805 Russians, excuse me, and I think these are actually 1805 minifigs. Yeah, so there you go. Generally, I'm not overly fussed about mixing things from different time periods. Anyway, so that's the Russians. Sorry, making you a bit car sick there. I was going to do the French next after the British, but I think we'll leave them to last. So what do we got here? We've got 17 units of infantry, 12 stands of skirmishers, 8 cavalry units plus that spare 6, or the, not spare 6, but the 6 that could be put into the guard unit, 10 guns and 30 artillerymen. Now, yes, if one is being strictly historical, there should be a lot more Russian artillery. I know that. But as I say, you had to draw the line somewhere. Perhaps in the future, again, it comes back to depending on what rules I use, but perhaps in the future I might add some more Russian artillery pieces. But for the time being, just sort of building everything to a uniform standard, I guess, so that I can get on and practice and decide which set of rules, or even come up with my own. So 8 commanders, 544 line infantry, 48 irregular or skirmisher, 102 cavalry, 10 artillery pieces, and 30 artillerymen. I mentioned about heavy being designated by having 4 artillerymen on the base. And there's your example. Okay, next army. so moving on to the Austrian Kaiser and his army. Same pattern, exactly the same again. Three units of grenadiers. Now, Austria, let's see if I can zoom in a bit, there we go. Austria didn't have guards, but they did have grenadiers and the King and Queen's horse regiment. So for the inverted commas guard of the cavalry, sorry, I've gone for the Kaiser's cuirassiers and the Empress Hussars, Hungarian. Yeah, so three units of grenadiers, generals. There's your heavy artillery. That's the reserve. They're moving along, and there's your standard force, guns at the front. 2 units of Hungarians. Did toy with the idea of making a whole force of Hungarians, but preferred to use southern German allies. If I'd made these 2 Hungarian, that would have meant literally half the army. The host army was Hungarian, and they, I don't believe they had that many units. They were a significant portion, but I don't think they were half. Hungarian hussars at the back. For the Allied Corps, I've gone with Württemberg and Bavarian. Bavarian's on your right, Württembergers on your left. Now you can see that these Württembergers are very early, sort of 1805, if not earlier, Württembergers. I didn't have quite enough for the 2 full units, so I did wind up, I actually pinched some, what were they? Brunswickers, I think. I can't recall. Anyway, converted these 2 into South German duchies. I forget which. That might have been Berg, I think, or I don't know if Berg's in the north. If so, it wouldn't be Berg. But anyway, but I converted these 2 into the southern German duchies. Now, I could if I wanted, I'm pretty sure they are Brunswickers. If I wanted to put those back into the Brunswick army, I did get, now these are meant to be Baden, which would have fit nicely. I think there's 16 in this packet and 8 in this one. Unfortunately, no command figures. I'll just open up so you can have a better look. They do tend to look, well, there we go, focus, you can do it. Yeah, that's them there. Now they have got trousers, and I'm sure Baden troops would have worn trousers at some stage, but all the pictures I've got of Baden troops are not with trousers. So, but anyway, that is an option. If there was something that I was going to paint, that would most likely be it. But then I'd be asking myself, do I actually need more Brunswick troops? Because I'd have to repaint those anyway. Adding to the reserve, there you've got your heavy cavalry, dragoons at the back, cuirassiers at the front. The only difference I can find between them is that the cuirassiers have a black half cuirass in the front. Otherwise, the units are exactly the same. And of course, as per a previous video, I did go around and cut off those ghastly thick flags and replace them with the, I think they're Essex from memory. So they came out quite well. Over the back, reserve. I did actually, in the photos, I forgot to take a picture of these. These are actually spare Bavarians. Some Lancers, Hungarian Grenzer. Wouldn't mind expanding those just a bit. And then some Austrian Landwehr. Slightly different colours. You zoom in. Yep. Yeah. Austrian Landwehr there. One in blue, one in grey. I'll head back out again. All right, so as I say, we're going through them fairly quickly now because there's really not much to say. You've seen them all before. But just those few little things that I point out. So the Austrians, 18.5 infantry units, 576 figures, 8 cavalry units for 96, 12 apiece, 48 skirmishers, 12 artillery, but that's simply because I've got that spare lot of Bavarian horse artillery over the back there, and 34 gunners. The Austrian army's always been a bit of a favourite of mine, but most people don't seem too keen on them. I know they lost a lot, but no, they've always been one of my favourite armies. The other thing that perhaps I would like to do is the skirmishers here. You can see the skirmishers for both of the host corps forces. They're both Jagers, which were German. Might be nice to replace a couple of stands there with Grenzer, but yeah, that's just a whim. Okay, so that's the Austrians. The Catholics. Yeah, just while I think of it, with the Allies, I tried to pick countries that would more naturally be allied to the host. So, for example, here with the Austrians, South Germans, Württembergs and Bavarians. I know the Bavarians and indeed the Württembergers fought quite a bit for the French against the Austrians, but I figured, Southern German, Catholic, like the Austrians. The British, bit of a no-brainer, Portuguese, Hanoverians and Spanish, of course. For the Russians, as we've seen, Swedish, again, sort of generally in that geographic area, Swedish and Finns. And I believe the Swedes fought with the Russians 1813 onwards. For the Prussians, we're going to see North German allies, Westphalians and Saxons. And then when we get to the French, the last army, we're going to see Poles and Italians. So, yeah, that's just a bit of an update there. Okay, let's press on. 2 armies to go. The Prussians, one of my smaller armies, 1813 onwards, 1814 often pitched in with the Russians or the Austrians, more particularly the Russians, I think. Obviously played a big part in 1815, but from what I can tell, still perhaps a bit light on for cavalry and lots of landwehr. Not that they were particularly or in any way bad troops. Let's see if we can't zoom in a bit. There we go. Same pattern. Now, their cavalry reserve is only 2 units with some horse artillery. Rather cheekily, I've got the Saxon heavy cavalry here. I forget, one was the Zastrow cuirassiers. Zastrow. Oh, sorry. I forget what the other one was called. Now, my understanding is in 1815, a lot of Westphalian and Saxon units had been incorporated into the Prussian army. I'm sure they were probably in the throes of getting their own uniforms, but yeah, just for a bit of colour and variation, a bit cheeky of me there. Rather dark and grim, Guard Hussars and Guard Lancers, which they only came into being in 1815, the Guard Lancers, and neither of those, of course, were at Waterloo, as were neither of these next 2 units. The Foot Guards, bit of confusion with my Osprey references about one wearing a black plume and the other a white plume. No idea if that's correct, but that's about the best I can make out. So just to differentiate them, one's got black plume, the other white. 12-pounders, of course, they're at the front. Then your stock standard. Right, I'm going to have to stay back here. Stock standard 2 corps forces. 4 units, cavalry and artillery. Now, with the... Well, that's a Prussian minifig, landwehr, long coat. Now, originally, these were called in the minifig catalogue reserve infantry, which they could be. I'm at this stage thinking I'll use them as landwehr, which the new 3rd generation had them as landwehr with short coat. If anyone out there knows for sure, I find it hard to believe that the landwehr in the middle of summer would have stuck with these long wooden coats, long woolen coats. Don't know. But anyway, I'm going to use those 4 as landwehr, and these ones at the front will be regular. I mean, I might designate these ones with the long coat as some reserve infantry, but by 1815, even before, there probably wasn't much difference, if any, between them and the main first 12 regiments. In both of those, I have included a stand of Fusiliers. Again, just to try and help show how they're different and a bit of variation. As mentioned, for the 3rd Allied Corps, Saxon figures on the right, and they are actual minifigs, second generation Saxon figures. Westphalians on the left with, again, actual Westphalian figures. Minifigs, although I think these are third generation. They actually fit for a change. Sorry if that's coming through the light. Might be a bit blue again playing up. It is getting on late in the day, but I've always had trouble with the sunlight in this room coming through. It seems to change everything to a blue. And then over the back there, you can see, oh, for heaven's sake. There, that's the spare units. Yagas at the front. That looks like their pants are showing as white. They're not, they're grey. But then some dragoons at the back there and lancers there at the front. Yeah, those dragoons, I think I've mentioned before that chariot miniatures, sometimes they would fit with the minifigs really well, and then other times they'd just be so different a scale, they would not go with the second gen minifigs at all. But anyway, so 15 infantry units for 480 line infantry, 12 stands of skirmishers for 48 figures there, 6.5 cavalry, so 78 cavalry, 10 artillery figures and 30 artillerymen. And again, over the back there, the bog standard 8 Prussian commanders. Time is getting away. Still quite a few hours until dusk. I'm going to press on. Hopefully this is going to turn out. I am exhausted. I don't know about you. Yeah, but lucky last French coming up. Okay, back in a sec. Okay, lucky last dear viewer. I think the last time I did this count, I was so, does one dare use the word knackered by the end, that I couldn't even be bothered getting the French out of their boxes. Couldn't do that to you, dear viewer, today or to good old Nappy. Again, like a broken record in front of you. Oh, sorry. In front of you, so there's your reserve, Old Guard Grenadiers, Old Guard Chasseurs, and then Young Guard. Behind them, Old Guard Grenadier Cavalry 6 and 6 Old Guard, mine's gone blank, Chasseurs, Light Cavalry. Now, behind them, just as per the Russians, I have done a 6-figure unit of, oh, things are going well, aren't they? I have done a 6-figure unit of Guard Dragoons. A little disappointed with the Essex figures. Was really hope they have quite a distinct tall red plume. on the side of their hat, but obviously Essex decided to do them as a, I guess, campaign dress, I guess. Don't know. So yeah, your stock standard reserve there. 10 generals this time. Napoleon Co. there, and then 8 generals. Not quite sure why the French have a surplus, probably just came in the packet or packets. Then you have 2 standard line forces with 4 infantry, a cavalry, skirmishers and 2 guns. Little tricks I tend to use, probably not showing up on this one. In fact, I should replace that one. With this one. Why do you do that, Ian? Little tricks of the trade to show the difference between units in different brigades or divisions, whatever. All 4 of these units have got the old-fashioned French flag, and all 4 of these units have got the tricolour. That just helps me keep track of who belongs to which command. I hope I caught that. Anyway, hopefully you heard it. Then we've got the Poles and Italians. I've got a stack of Poles. I could easily do at least another 1 infantry unit, probably 2. And then we've got our cavalry reserve down here. 6 cuirassiers. Now, I've done them with the white coats, but there seems to be some new research that says at Waterloo they wore a sort of a pale blue coat. Anyway, I'm too old to be bothered going back and changing that. And then standard cuirassier, standard dragoons, call them heavy. And then as you can see, I've got quite a, see that blue light really is playing up today, isn't it? Let's pop that out a bit. I've got quite a few, not spare, but units, what's that, 3, probably 5 infantry units and a cavalry unit and some skirmishers. I did get some 2nd gen minifigs and I tried snipping the bayonets to make them a reasonable height, and yeah, nah, didn't work, but I keep them as a backup. I found the, come on, there you go. I did find the chariot miniatures mixed fairly well, particularly with the 2nd gen minifigs. Again, if I'd made up a unit of these on their own, they'd have mixed in with the other minifigs, or the 2nd generation minifigs, quite well. But no, I used them with the 3rd generation minifigs that I've got 2 units of. Sorry, that's blurring and popping in and out. It's getting near the end of the day. Yeah, anyway, so one last time, make you seasick as we fly over. Can we come down here? Yeah, that'll do. All right, folks, apologies for the poor camera work and the prattle, but what have we got there? 640 line infantry, 64 irregular skirmish infantry, 102 cavalry, 10 guns, 30 gunners and 10 10 commanders. Yeah. All right, let's stop there, put everything away and add everything up before it really gets dark. Back in a minute.
Okay, so here's the final totals, dear viewer. 3,486 individual figures and 512 mounted figures and 54 cannon. Well, I'm sure if I poke around in my cupboards, I'll find the odd figure or figures that I've forgotten to include. Hopefully you've got some enjoyment from that, if nothing else, something to paint along to while I'm piffling on in the background. As I say, who knows what the future holds regarding YouTube, etc. I'm going to concentrate now for a while on family, friends. Christmas is coming up. The loss of many friends really makes me appreciate those who I have left and family. So I'm going to be concentrating on them for a while now. So can't see myself posting anything else now until after Christmas at the earliest, and that would be who knows how all this legislation the Australian government's putting through, how that's going to affect. But anyway, if I may wish you all a early happy Christmas. If you do happen to be on your own, try and get some enjoyment out of it. Have a decent meal, go and see a decent movie, etc. Otherwise, share with family and friends. I hope you have an enjoyable festive season and touch wood, catch up with you all again next year. Okay, bye for now. Cheers.